Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06 on this Monday morning. Thanks for tuning in and starting your week the right way. That was really loud and exciting, and I felt like I had way too much energy there, and I needed to just chill out, all right? We're coming off a busy weekend. It's Monday, and hey, good Monday to you. Good to talk with you. How are you?
Good morning.
Julie GUnlock is here with us as we buckle up and begin to launch into this final week of February. I always feel like when you get to March, pretty much done with snow.
Yes.
I mean, we've been known to have snow.
We had a really nice winter. It was just the right amount.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything like a snowmageddon.
I'm not going to complain about it. Coming up at 6:35, U.S. Senate candidate for Virginia, Jonathan Amord. I'm sure he'll correct me when he gets on the air with us at 6:35. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. We might need the whole hour with Joe.
I think so.
And at 8:05, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. I am Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor and Company, and Julie GUnlock is right next to me, keeping me company on O'Connor and Company. Good morning. It was a fine CPAC conference, except that you weren't there.
I was not.
We got to figure this out. That we always do CPAC on Thursday and Friday, and your schedule is such that those are your off days.
Yes.
And people were like,
but I watched a little bit. I did.
People would come up to the booth and say, "Where's Julie?" And I would say, "Well, she's not on the air today." And she said, "Well, so?" I think they assume that you're like here anyway. Like if you're not on the air, you're like just part of the team.
Yeah.
Just sort of giving us moral support and handing me funny things to say.
It was a great show. You and Mercy and you and Patrice had. It was great.
We had fun, and it was great to see so much love from WMAL Nation flying by there. Boy, you know what? I know we've rejuvenated our WMAL app.
Yes.
And the app is out there, and you can get lots of great information and great news.
That's how I listen to the show.
Podcast and live stream and a interaction with WMAL there at the WMAL app. And what should I not pop my pee when I say that?
Okay, keep going.
Well, I just want to make sure they're saying it. Yeah. So, and I think that it's sort of catching fire because people from all over. Because I always ask where people live when they say, "Oh, love you. You're my favorite show. You start my mornings great. Thank you." And I say, "Oh, where do you live?" And Loudoun County, and Southern Maryland, and then we get people like, "Oh, I'm in South Carolina."
No, my parents listen in Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa. There you go. And then Vermont, and it's like people are all over the place, and that's kind of fun.
That is nice.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we
always say we're the nation's morning show.
We are America's morning show. So we had a good time, and it was a good show. I think that we brought the energy that people expect from our special CPAC extravaganza. And on stage at CPAC, I think that I don't think there were any real surprises there. Oftentimes at CPAC, you'll get different conservative leaders with different perspective and different ideas about how things are going. And we saw that, by the way. In fact, I remember Laura Trump was up there giving a speech. She is presumptively going to be the co-chair of the RNC, should her father-in-law get the nomination, and it certainly appears as though he's on his way there, with South Carolina looking humiliating for Nikki Haley.
Yes.
So she said, she was talking about mail-in ballots and how, more resources have to be put in there to encourage Republicans to vote early and get those ballots in. And Mike Lindell,
I know,
of My Pillow fame, came up later and said,
"Don't.
No. Stop with the mail-in ballots. Stop with this." So, and again, I'm not necessarily taking sides.
I know the point you're making. Yeah.
I'm just saying, everyone's, it's just a monolith and everyone agrees. No, actually, there's often disagreement on stage about various things. So we're also listening. You had Katie McFarland and Gordon Chang and some pretty heavy, Richard Grinnell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some real heavy hitters on foreign policy, national security stuff. And then you had some people going up there saying, I don't know why we're doing all this foreign policy stuff.
You also had some foreign leaders that were
a lot of foreign leaders who were very. Can I tell you? I sort of did. I can't remember if I told this story on the air Friday, but Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who's actually turned that country around from the murder capital of the world to the safest with regards to violent crime.
Because he actually puts criminals in jail.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
a little funny thing he
Well,
does.
and everyone starts screaming, like, he's an authoritarian. He's doing mass arrests. Okay, well, here's how you do a mass arrest. You go into an MS-13, hideout, and you arrest
the
everyone who's
gangs.
there. Yeah, everyone. How do you know I'm one of the gangs? Well, the face tattoo is a giveaway.
It might give. Yeah,
You can
the fact that you're actually stabbing someone right now
Right.
is a kind of a giveaway. All right. Go
So there's mass arrests, and it's like, well, they can defend themselves in court, and yes, they're expediting the judicial system because they haven't had 400 years of Magna Carta civil rights there. Okay, we come from the comfortable setting of having a stable 250-year-old constitutional republic with what most people believe is a reliable criminal justice system, although it's in question sometimes these days. He is actually trying to fix the hemorrhaging, like where your artery is cut and the blood is spurting out, and you don't make the nicest, cleanest little. Now, listen, if he does end up seizing power, if he does end up, controlling the military against his political enemies, if he ends up, taking his political opponents and throwing stupid charges at them and throwing them in jail, then yes, we should look at him with scrutiny, although we've sort of lost the moral high ground with that.
Good point.
But, here's the bottom line when it comes to Bukele right now. We can't judge every country and every leader based on the circumstances they're in, shot through the lens of Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, because they're not quite there yet, So as far as I'm concerned, the people of El Salvador seem pretty happy right now.
Yeah, well, also I love that the Democrats completely turn a blind eye to the corruption in Ukraine, where we're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars.
I thought you were going to say Chicago.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, Ukraine as well. Them too.
Well, I mean, we're talking about foreign countries and we're talking about foreign leaders, and they're totally willing to turn a blind eye to some of the corruption, much of the corruption going on in the Ukraine, where we're sending billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars and focus on Bukele and some of these they consider human rights abuses.
Right.
They're just very choosy.
So Richard Grinnell and I are on stage doing our one-on-one thing, and we're right before Bukele. And Meredith is like hanging out in the corridor, and she hears a huge cheer, and she's like, "Well, what's that? It can't be Larry. What's everyone excited about?" I'm like, "Thanks, honey." And she goes, all the restaurant work. I did tell this story. Now that I'm saying it, I remember I said this on the air. All the restaurant workers and hotel workers from El Salvador, they all ran down to the corridor where they were bringing the president in.
That's interesting.
With homemade signs and El Salvadoran flags, and they were like screaming for him like he was a rock star.
That's really...
Because, he's a totalitarian dictator, and his strongmen forced the employees of the Gaylord to sort of drop everything.
And actually,
and
these
go cheer
employees
for
might
him.
be like, hey, we can maybe go home now.
Well, over 100,000 Salvadorans have returned.
Wow.
Back there, construction is honestly. I mean, I remember being there, seeing these pristine, beautiful beaches, thinking if they can get their act together, this will be the tourist destination of this hemisphere, and it could be. People go to Costa Rica for vacations.
Well, it's very funny because I just read an article this weekend talking about how the sort of resorts in Mexico, northern Mexico, have been taken over.
Meredith read that too.
Yes,
I know because we used to vacation.
We're like,
in
okay,
Mexico.
we're not going there now.
We're not going to Cancun. No, it's 100% true.
Yes.
She was also reading an article that showed something like mayors of Mexico, or candidates for mayor, or actual sitting mayors in Mexican cities since 2010. There's something like 600 of them have been assassinated.
Yeah.
In the last 15 years.
Yeah. But yeah, Bukele is the real problem. Yeah.
Bukele's
there we
the
go.
problem. All right. So anyway, you're right. Javier Milei was Saturday night. President Trump was middle of the day Saturday. I'm going to tell you everything about that stuff and other things.
It shows the reach of CPAC, that they've gone international. Mercy and Matt Schlapp have done tremendous work to sort of make inroads in other countries, and I think that's
no,
really...
they see it as a global. The idea of the cause for freedom and human rights and liberty, and throwing off the shackles of a totalitarian government is kind of universal. You don't just have to be American, but America has always stood for those things, and that's why we're thrilled to be able to be part of hosting this event every year in this town. I want to tell you some of this and some great stuff that Mark Levin did on stage too.
Absolutely.
Some of the lies that people are saying about CPAC, the results of the straw poll, which was about vice president, a whole lot of other stuff in a sec. But first, you need to know how to get where you're going. It's 5:15 WMAL traffic and weather. Every 10 minutes, first on the fives. We got Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Jamie Whitten, by the way, shortlist for vice president as well.
Join Vince Colonnese March 7th for the all-new Stake of the Union at Bourbon Boulevard in Chantilly. Details at WMAL.com/stake.
Did I just say seasonable? I meant seasonal. You know, it takes a while for your mouth to get working again after. There's a lot of talking at CPAC.
Mondays are tough.
The Mondays are tough in general. So here, I want to tell you all about the Trump CPAC speech. I have seen, I think, 5, 6, maybe Trump CPAC speeches now. Actually, more than that, now that I think about it, 7, as either president or former president. I saw one that he gave before he was president as well. I remember it well. So I didn't watch this one. I've seen him a lot. And we woke up and Meredith was feeling under the weather. You know, the CPAC
Well, I was
plague.
sick the week before.
People get sick.
Things are going around. Ugh.
Well, I was sick the week earlier in the week
you
last
were.
week. It cleared up in time for the most part by the time we got to CPAC on Thursday. So we went home. I missed Trump and I missed Millet because we had to, but we've watched it afterwards, and it was classic Trump, you know.
Yeah.
And he had to leave there to go to the South Carolina primary results, which we can talk about a little later in the program. But you know, apparently NBC News found some dude in the lobby of the hotel who had a CPAC entrance badge, you know, an attendee badge, which literally anyone can get.
That's right.
You fill out a form, you
Yep.
buy a ticket, and you can go, just like going to a movie.
Right.
Just like, right? And this guy apparently was like giving a Nazi salute to somebody on a camera.
He was probably a Democrat.
And so, right,
A Virginia
you
Democrat,
never know.
right?
I mean, or it could be a wackadoodle. Who knows?
I mean, it can be, but okay.
So NBC News runs with this and saying CPAC has a dark underbelly with these Nazis showing up. And it's like, I mean, if you saw what Mark and Julie Levin, or more properly, Julie and Mark Levin, had on stage a family member of a hostage, somebody with dual American and Israeli citizenship, who was being held hostage now by Hamas. The string of people who were on stage who pled for the Israeli effort and screaming about the Hamas Nazis who were slaughtering people, innocent people who might very well do the same thing here, to suggest that there's any Nazi presence.
Well,
at
also,
this thing.
I mean, Julie Levin and Elise Stefanik celebrated Shabbat
right.
with the young Jewish conservatives there at CPAC.
And Rick Grinnell spoke there
Yes.
and did a presentation there. No, I know. We went, and we normally do the Shabbat Saturday afternoon, and we couldn't because of Meredith's illness. But I know it's
It was just terrible.
It's obscene.
It is
It's
obscene.
absolutely obscene. And you know, you really want to worry about, you know, Jew hatred? Could we talk about the sitting congresswoman from Michigan, from Dearborn, Rashida Tlaib, who literally, or how about Ilhan Omar? How about you really want to talk about Jew hatred instead of some rando who shows up in a lobby at an event?
Yeah.
How about actual sitting members of
yes,
Congress,
who are calling
for God's sake?
who have genocidal chants
Yes.
coming out of their mouth.
How about Antony Blinken, who just threw the people of Israel under the bus by condemning new construction of housing,
Yeah.
which reverses the policy that we've had for 6 years since the Trump administration?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's a little bit more Jew-friendly? The Biden administration and Trump. It's obscene.
How
it's
about
disgusting.
all of Hollywood and
Thank
many
you.
elected officials calling for a ceasefire before the hostages have been released?
It's outrageous.
It's gross.
So they had a CPAC straw poll. They didn't even bother for president because there's only 2 candidates left, and there really aren't, because one of
Right.
them is getting most of their votes from Democrats and independents, which we'll talk about a little later. So the straw poll was about vice president, and it was a tie. It was a tie.
Oh.
Vivek Ramaswamy and Kristi Noem. What do you think?
Wow.
I know.
Out of nowhere.
They're two
No,
very
this is
different
not-
people.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. Kristi Noem gave a really good speech,
Did she?
and the crowd likes her. Yeah. That's all you got. And she'll bring South Dakota to the table there in terms of the
thank
Electoral
God.
College. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
There you go.
Tulsi Gabbard came in second. Yes. And then Elise Stefanik came
How was
in
Tulsi's speech? Did you hear it?
third. I did. It was happening on. She was right before me and Grinnell. And so we were backstage, and I've run
You
into
know
Tulsi
Tulsi,
Gabbard
yeah.
on several occasions, and I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here to give the conservative case for socialized medicine."
You did not.
Yes, I did. And she laughed, and I said, "Do they know you're not conservative?" Right. And she says, "Well, I don't like Biden or Hillary." I said, "I know,
good enough.
and I appreciate that, but you aren't conservative."
Right.
And she just kept laughing. She said, "Shut up, Larry. We're building a coalition
I get
here."
that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She's going to be a co-host here. So, yeah, I mean, I like Tulsi Gabbard, and I think Grinnell, it's like, you know what? She'd be great as the Secretary of Veterans Administration.
Yes.
She'd be great.
Yeah.
She does bring some, third way kind of voters to the table. Sure. She isn't sort of very independent. All the right people hate her, and I like that.
Yeah, that's true.
She's very good on air, and she's very good with veterans affairs and veterans issues.
And she doesn't have that. It's interesting. She really is a girl boss without that cheesy Nikki Haley.
Right, she doesn't do
oh my
that.
gosh, if you want something done right, get a woman to do.
Exactly.
So,
100%.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't want her anywhere near the Oval Office.
Right.
And
like
it's certainly not one heartbeat away. No.
Right.
Just Secretary of the VA would be perfect.
Perfect.
Let's do that. Okay. Solved.
Well done.
Oh, but first we have to win the election. We'll get to that a little later. It's 5:23. All right. Coming up, we've got a pretty big breaking news story that we'll give you all the details on. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? We kind of thought this was going to happen, but it happened. It's official. It was announced moments ago. Ronna McDaniel is out as chairwoman of the RNC.
There we go.
We suspected it would happen after South Carolina, and here we are. We'll talk about it next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Monday already as we have breaking news. The resignation of Ronna McDaniel as chairwoman of the RNC. We're going to get to details on that in just a moment. Also at 6:35, Jonathan Emward is running for U.S. Senate in Virginia. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva on all the crimes Democrats get away with. And at 8:05, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. Ditto. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie GUnlock.
Good morning.
Are you ready to step in as the new chairwoman of the Republican National Committee?
I am not.
I just thought I'd ask. It is official now. Ronna McDaniel has announced that she will step down next month as chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. This is after President Trump's endorsement of a new slate of leaders to direct the party. It was a year ago when she faced re-election. She decided to go for an unprecedented fourth term. No one has ever held this position for this long. It was never intended to be held for this long. She decided she wanted that historic fourth term. And now here we are a year later, and she's stepping away. And one wonders if it would have been different if we had had a more open election for someone last time, with Harmeet Dillon challenging Ronna McDaniel and a couple of other names popping up as well. Now, instead, you've got Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, after depleting much of the budget of the RNC, coming off of a lackluster off-year election in Virginia and a couple of other states as well. You've got basically her abandoning ship in the middle of the primary season, heading into a presidential election. This is an inopportune time to leave, but I guess when all is said and done, better to have a more efficient chairwoman of the RNC than have none at all, or Ronna McDaniel staying in her position. I wish a year ago she would have reconsidered and said, you know what, instead I'm going to serve my country by running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. There was an open seat there that she could run for. Yeah. It looks like former Congressman Mike Rogers is positioned to be that Republican instead. But that would have been an interesting path for her to take, or instead, be part of Trump's cabinet. I don't know. But now she's leaving a Republican National Committee that's sort of scrambling. Yeah,
and not leaving with... I don't want to go overboard. I mean, I just think that there's a lot of people who are critical of her leadership and wish she would have moved on. In light of, we've not had any success. We haven't had successes it's not as though, why would you leave when you're, while it's obviously working. It wasn't working. Yeah. So it's sort of one of these things where you should leave before you're down, and she stayed on a little too long. It should be noted that President Trump did give her an endorsement, yes, or at least support back when she was under fire during the election last year. If he had said, it's time for Harmeet Dillon, or if it's time for change, that would have been a big change, would have made a big difference in that election.
She said, now get this, and this is what people hate about politicians, and when I say people, I mean me. I have decided to step aside at our spring training on March 8th in Houston to allow our nominee to select a chair of their choosing. The RNC has historically undergone change once we have a nominee, and has always been my intention to honor that tradition. What do you mean it's all? I don't remember you running a year ago saying, by the way, once we have a nominee next year in March, I'm going to step aside. She didn't say that when she was running for re-election. I hate it when they do that.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, I was always planning on only serving 1 year of my 2-year term. Really? So now who's it going to be? And more importantly, what are they going to do? Because they've got a mess to clean up. And they're inheriting a real tough decision to make because, listen, here's what happens when you have a presumptive nominee. The operations of the campaign and the party sort of merge. Right now, during the primary process, there's a bit of a firewall there. In fact, a lot of people suggesting that's one of the reasons Nikki Haley is staying in. Or I should rephrase that. One of the reasons why big Democrat donors who hate Donald Trump are propping up Nikki Haley and keeping her in, because the second she's out and he's officially the presumptive nominee, he then has access to the apparatus of the RNC, and that includes money as well. And there's a big concern from some people that a lot of the money that the RNC has, which isn't a lot, will actually go to supporting his legal fees.
Right.
And the Trump campaign is like, listen, the RNC's main focus is to beat Joe Biden. And if that means utilizing fundraising capabilities to help keep Donald Trump
on the
in the
ballot
game, then that's what needs to happen. Others would argue that it's not the RNC's sole responsibility to beat Joe Biden. It's their responsibility to help Republicans win.
Across
all the
board.
Republicans.
Yes,
right.
yes.
So, I mean, that's
that
a debate
includes
Republicans need to have right now.
That includes registering voters
Yep.
and getting those people to show up.
Yep.
And many people have said that Ronna McDaniel is not doing enough of that.
Right.
Very grassroots. You know, this is the tough stuff. You know, and
But there's going to be a big fight over the legal fees. And the fact that, and Laura Trump over the weekend at CPAC said, yeah, I think that's appropriate that the RNC would open up their coffers to help the president's legal fees, pay for the legal fees. Of course, Laura Trump is the daughter-in-law of President Trump. So this is going to be a thing.
It is.
And we'll see how it goes. I'm torn on it. I recognize that. And I think that the president is being unjustly persecuted in the legal system. But at the same time, we've got a lot of races the RNC needs to be involved in. Our biggest critique of the RNC is that they just focus on the White House and not everything down ticket and throw support to, congressional races that could be won, Senate races that could be won. And if a whole bunch of their treasury is going to go to pay the legal bills for President Trump.
I'm with you. I'm sort of torn as well, but I have never seen a more existential threat to our country, to our democracy, to our way of life than another Biden term. And what they're doing to Trump is so anti-democratic. So I'm all for the RNC's funds going for these legals.
And we have news about Fani Willis. I think inappropriately some people refer to her as Big Fani, and that's not right. Now you know why she keeps saying, my name is Fani, not Fanny, okay? I don't think that's appropriate. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen her from the waist down.
Oh, of course you have, when she was marching up to the stand.
Oh, yeah, she does have a big butt.
Yes.
Anyway, Fani Willis there over in Fulton County. We're going to talk to Joe DeGeneva about this at 7:05. Let me just start with that. They claim, remember, this is a critically important piece of testimony. They have sworn under oath, we've seen it with our own eyes, with our own ears, that their relationship started March of 21. Or as my brother likes to say, Mr. Wade there, sometime in early 21. It's like, dude, it's your anniversary.
Right.
I remember my first date from like 10 years ago. Come on. He can't go there. So he has to keep it vague, right? That's how you play it cool.
He was married.
Well, there's that too. I assure you he remembers. Anyway, it turns out from January to November, I said March of 22. Pardon me, March of 2022.
When he was,
and that's after he had already been
hired.
appointed as the special prosecutor.
Right.
So basically their story is, listen, it's just a Me Too
and that's
situation.
important because there's like rules about this. Right. You're not allowed to hire the guy you're sleeping with.
I would argue there's even rules about, doing it with someone after you've hired them.
Of course.
Let alone before.
Right.
But
right.
the real reason it's important is because their testimony said this, and now they might get caught lying under oath. And it turns out that from January to November 2021, Nathan Wade's phone pinged near Ms. Willis's home 35 times. There were 2,000 voice calls between the two of them, 10,000 text messages between the two of them in the months leading up to. I mean,
how do you get any work done?
Exactly. There's also a suggestion that he advised her on who to hire for the internal investigation into Donald Trump before it triggered the special prosecutor.
A man with no experience in this matter.
Yeah. So it's going to be rather interesting. By the way,
I just love that her cell phone records and his cell phone records. She should know this was possible, that they could track this.
Nathan Wade made the decisions to hire or fire employees in Fulton County District Attorney's Office following Fulton County Prosecutor Fani Willis's election victory in November of 2020, according to multiple sources. This whole thing is falling apart for them. And again, I just want to reiterate, and we'll talk to Joe DeGenova at 7:05, but the judge, the bar here on whether she should be removed from this prosecution of Donald Trump is the appearance of a conflict.
That's right.
The appearance of a conflict. And I think we've got that. We've got the appearance. We've got the actual conflict. But now we've got perjury.
Yeah.
We've got lying to the court under oath, audaciously lying to the court. And I guess, it's the Bill Clinton rule, which is, everybody lies about sex.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
And it's just, it's to use sort of the language of the left nowadays, it's just, how in the world does this woman have a job? Right. I mean, at all? It's just, you have the left coming out criticizing the Trump family and Trump and saying, we want to put the grown-ups back in charge and we want, legitimate people back in charge. And then you watch this and you're just, it's astonishing.
Well, it's yes, the grown-ups are back in charge, thank God. The adults are in the room because it was just chaotic under Donald Trump. And not only are these people obscene and fools and embarrassing and apparently pretty ignorant. I don't mind someone being ignorant. It's the belligerence that goes with it that I really don't abide. But also, let's just, again, remind everybody, these are the individuals, Fani Willis, Mr. Wade, the grand jury down in Fulton County. They're the ones who are deciding to use criminal law in the United States of America in a way that it has never been used in 250 years as a political weapon against the leading candidate for president right now.
Yeah.
Because he opposes the party that she and they are affiliated with. And she and they have had interactions with the Biden White House.
That's right.
Over the intervening years when these charges were brought. They are bringing racketeering charges not just against the former president and current candidate for president, but against his lawyers for giving him legal advice.
They sit on a pedestal and they talk about the corruption in the Biden administration when they are steeped in corruption. They are corrupt, immoral people doing this.
I want to know, of the 10,000 text messages, which emojis were used? And did they use the ones that people use to replace human body parts? There are certain emojis. Don't give me that look.
Moving on.
There are certain emojis that when
I know.
I'm told that when you're flirting with someone or sexting with them, as the kids like to say, they use these little emojis that are like pieces of fruit or vegetables that anatomically resemble sort of like a hey baby kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think they did that?
I think they did.
I want to know. It's not enough for me to know that there were 10,000 text messages. I want to see them. I want this to be Peter Strzok sort of level of depravity.
I forgot about that.
Right? That's what this is. And by the way, and so you're laughing. It's like, oh, Peter Strzok. That's right, Peter Strzok, and the whole texting at the FBI about how they're going to get Trump. They got away with it.
Yep, they did.
And that's how these people continue to get away with it.
They didn't just get away with it. They are the darlings of CNN and MSNBC. And
that's right.
Oh.
So don't be surprised when the message is sent that this is how you can behave and this is what you can do.
And
it
you
gets
benefit
repeated.
from it, yeah.
See, behavior that is rewarded gets repeated. Behavior that is punished ends. It's time to end this. 5:53.